I still recall the day I first drove into Mapleway Court, a small horseshoe of tidy townhouses, each unit sporting matching shutters and a neat little walkway. The centerpiece of the cul-de-sac was a broad, tree-lined lawn. My 3-year-old son, Mateo, sat up in his car seat, pressing his nose to the window, eyes shining. "Look, Mama," he said, spotting the kids playing in the grassy common area. At the time, I felt a surge of hope. After years in a cramped city apartment, I wanted a home where Mateo could run around freely. The realtor's pitch promised a family-friendly community and a homeowners association that kept everything orderly. It sounded perfect. Sure, I'd heard jokes about overzealous HOAs, but I figured those were exaggerations, nothing that would overshadow the benefits of a well-maintained neighborhood. From the very first visit, Mapleway Court's charm seduced me. Bright flowers lining the curbs, well-kept pathways, and neighbors who waved hello. I envisioned lazy weekends letting Mateo explore the communal lawn, maybe chatting with other parents on folding chairs or organizing small picnics under the oak trees. I felt certain this was the environment we needed. If only I'd known the self-appointed sheriff of the HOA, a stern woman named Bernadette, universally known as Karen, waited in the wings, ready to pounce on even the smallest hint of childhood laughter. I closed on the townhouse in early spring and moved in over a single hectic weekend. Boxes towered in every corner. Mateo, thrilled by the promise of the new yard, darted outside at every opportunity. On our first Monday morning, I was guiding a couch through the front door with a friend's help when a clipped voice rang out. "Excuse me." A tall, poised woman in her mid-40s strode over, wearing pressed slacks and carrying a clipboard, an odd accessory for a casual Monday. Her hair was styled in a short bob, and she moved with the brisk authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Hello." I managed, letting my friend handle the couch so I could greet this stranger. She gave me a tight smile. "I'm Bernadette Alton, though some people call me Karen. I serve on the HOA committee. Welcome to Mapleway Court. Please remember, we have guidelines for how the lawn is used, especially regarding children." Before I could reply, she shoved a printed packet into my hands, titled Community Standards and Regulations. I thanked her, baffled, and she turned sharply, presumably off to survey the next potential misdemeanor. I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just an intense volunteer, but a nagging voice told me we'd crossed paths for a reason. She wanted me to know she was watching. Within days, I noticed Karen's presence everywhere, strolling the street with that clipboard, peering into flower beds, rapping on doors if she spotted a dog off-leash. Neighbors mentioned she'd once reprimanded someone for leaving a bicycle out too long, or for failing to bring in trash bins by 10 a.m. It was as though she believed Mapleway Court was her personal domain. One afternoon, Mateo chased a foam ball across the lawn. I was right behind him. He never played unsupervised. But Karen emerged from her unit, arms folded, telling me we shouldn't let children run wild. I pointed out that I was literally a few steps away, carefully watching him. She sniffed, telling me to review the rules. Then she marched off, leaving me unsettled and defensive. Later, I discovered she'd done the same to Tara, a mom of 2 energetic boys. Karen apparently demanded they keep their shouting to a minimum because it disrupted the tranquil environment. Another neighbor, Shauna, recalled how Karen once snapped photos of her toddlers blowing whistles, threatening to log it as a noise violation. Quietly, people referred to her as Karen, half in jest, half in exasperation. As Mateo turned 4, he and his little playmates used the lawn regularly, always under parental supervision, never too early or late. Yet Karen seemed determined to curb their fun. Then, one Saturday morning, a typed notice appeared in every mailbox. Effective immediately, children's activities such as ball games, shrieking, and running are prohibited on the communal lawn. Violators may face HOA sanctions for noise and property damage. The letter bore the HOA letterhead but was unsigned. Parents panicked. It read like a blanket ban on kids' play. Furious, I emailed Judith, our HOA president, a gentle retiree who typically handled finances and landscaping. She responded, confused. The board had never approved such a policy. It turned out Karen, acting alone, had created and distributed this rule. Rallying together, we demanded an emergency HOA meeting. Parents showed up, brandishing the flyer, pointing out how it singled out children's behavior. Karen sat calmly at the front, arms folded. Judith apologized on behalf of the association, emphasizing that no official ban existed and that the posted notice was null and void. Karen tried to argue that residents complained of constant noise, but the rest of the board shut her down. It was a victory for parents, but it was clear Karen wouldn't let it rest. Losing that battle only made Karen more determined. She started patrolling the lawn at random times, phone in hand, ready to film excessive decibel levels. If a child let out a particularly loud squeal, she materialized, scolding the parent. She pinned new reminders to the bulletin board, referencing obscure guidelines like maintaining uniform aesthetics and avoiding disruptive behavior. It was exhausting. Some neighbors without kids wavered between sympathy for quiet and disbelief at Karen's extremism. Seniors in the cul-de-sac sometimes nodded along to her talk about peaceful living, but they also enjoyed seeing children play outside. Meanwhile, parents felt besieged, always bracing for the next confrontation. We try to keep the kids calm. No shrill screaming. But, let's face it, kids can't be silent. The tension built daily. I exchanged stories with Tara, Shauna, and others via group text. We joked that we needed a child advocacy committee to oppose Karen's reign. One father threatened to call a lawyer if she tried another official ban. The vibe was that something had to give, or we'd be stuck living under Karen's watchful glare forever. In the midst of this, I realized Mateo's 5th birthday was a few weeks away. Initially, I planned a small indoor party, cupcakes, a few games, maybe some balloons in the living room. But when I mentioned the idea to Tara, she made a suggestion that changed everything. Why not do it on the lawn? She pointed out how perfect it would be for kids to run around, blow bubbles, chase balloons. Fresh air. A family-friendly, harmless event. I hesitated. Karen would obviously disapprove, likely show up with her phone, possibly call the HOA, or even the cops. But then a part of me bristled. Wasn't this exactly the space we paid HOA fees to maintain? Why should Karen's hostility confine us indoors? Tara grinned. Let's do it. We'll invite the other parents. It'll be like a statement. We're not afraid of you, Karen. Feeling equal parts nervous and emboldened, I decided to go for it. I pinned a polite announcement on the community board. Mateo's 5th birthday on the lawn, Saturday, 12 to 3 p.m. Expect children's laughter. Hoping to give neighbors a heads up. The next day, it was torn down. Neighbors reported seeing Karen removing it. That sealed the deal. I started texting invites directly, and the response was overwhelming. Parents who had experienced Karen's overreach wanted to show solidarity. Even Harriet, a sweet older widow, told me she missed the sound of children playing and promised to bring cookies. What began as a 6-kid gathering swelled to about 10 toddlers, plus older siblings, plus a handful of neighborly supporters. We planned simple yard games, a bubble machine, face painting, and a snack table. If Karen tried to shut us down, she'd face an entire block's worth of resistance. On the morning of Mateo's birthday, I woke to a pristine blue sky and a gentle breeze. Perfect party weather. We set out folding chairs near the biggest oak, ironically close to Karen's townhouse. Shauna helped anchor a small canopy for shade. Tara blew up colorful balloons, tying them to a portable table. Harriet arrived, cheerful, carrying a tray of homemade chocolate chip cookies. Someone else brought a boombox to play kid-friendly music, keeping the volume moderate. By noon, the lawn teemed with life. Toddlers toddled around, squealing each time they discovered a new balloon or bubble. The older siblings tried starting a mini soccer match. Parents laughed and mingled, exchanging high-fives for standing up to tyranny. I felt my spirits soar. This was exactly what a communal lawn should look like. Children's laughter, colorful decorations, people bonding. Of course, it didn't take long before Karen emerged. She stood on her porch, arms crossed, surveying the scene like a strict teacher at recess. After a few minutes of glaring, she marched over, stepping gingerly around a toddler who ran past waving a balloon. "What's going on here?" she demanded. I smiled politely. "Mateo's birthday party. We'll be done by 3, so we won't disturb anyone's evening." Karen's eyes darted to the bubble machine, spitting out shimmering orbs. "This is a large gathering, more than just a few kids. Did you get official permission?" Tara, nearby, chimed in. "We followed standard guidelines, daytime hours, supervised kids. The board only requires official scheduling if we block the entire lawn, or host a huge event. This is just a small party. Karen's face reddened. That's not how I interpret the regulations. The noise level is already absurd. If you don't settle down, I'll have to call the authorities. With that, she spun around and stomped back inside. A hush followed. Some parents exchanged worried glances, uncertain if the police would actually show. But we decided we were doing nothing illegal, just kids playing, no raucous music, in broad daylight. So we carried on. Sure enough, about 40 minutes later, a patrol car cruised into Mapleway Court, lights off, as if the officers weren't expecting real trouble. Two uniformed officers stepped out, scanning a scene of pastel balloons, a face paint station, and squealing preschoolers. One officer approached me with a polite nod. "We received a noise complaint about a disturbance," he said, glancing at the kids, who were chasing bubbles in the background. I forced a calm smile. "Yes, sir. We're hosting a child's birthday party from noon to 3. It's all within normal hours. No excessive noise beyond kids laughing. We're not blasting music or anything." He looked around, noting the upbeat but hardly chaotic atmosphere. "Doesn't seem like a violation to me," he remarked gently. "Just try to keep it reasonable and make sure everything wraps up by a decent time." "Absolutely," I replied, relieved. He gave me a short wave, then motioned to his partner. They drove off, evidently satisfied this was no major problem. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Karen's blinds twitching. Her big gambit to shut us down had failed. With the police angle resolved, the tension lifted. The party went into full swing. We gathered the kids to sing Happy Birthday for Mateo, who beamed behind a small chocolate cake topped with 5 candles. Harriet snapped pictures while the toddlers clapped. Mateo nearly spat out the candles with excitement, leaving them half-doused in frosting. Parents cheered, older siblings teased him, and laughter rippled across the lawn. Tara cranked up the bubble machine, doubling the flow of bubbles drifting overhead. Children ran in circles, squealing whenever they managed to pop a big one. The older kids pivoted to a game of tag, weaving around chairs, mindful not to bump the littler ones. Harriet handed out cookies, telling each child they were helping keep the neighborhood lively. A father strummed a ukulele softly, providing cheerful background music. Karen ventured outside once more, scanning for violations. She glared at a balloon that drifted near her porch, kicked it away, and mumbled something about grass damage. But with so many neighbors present, supportive and unafraid, she retreated again. By 3 o'clock, we began our cleanup, popping leftover balloons, tossing paper plates, ensuring the lawn was spotless. The entire event ended smoothly, kids yawning from all the excitement, parents sharing smiles of triumph. Mateo ran up to me, cheeks sticky with frosting. "Mama," he said sleepily, "I love my birthday." I hugged him, heart full of gratitude. We'd just defied Karen's attempts to muzzle children, and it felt glorious. Predictably, Karen went on a rampage in the days after. She fired off emails to the HOA board, citing permanent lawn damage, excessive decibel levels, and potential safety hazards. The board came out to inspect, found the grass slightly flattened but otherwise unscathed, and dismissed her claims. She then posted on the HOA's online forum, calling us inconsiderate parents who treated the lawn like a private daycare. Instead of applause, she was met with pushback. Residents who'd previously stayed silent criticized her for overreacting, especially over a midday children's party. Encouraged by this support, parents felt freer. We realized that Karen's intimidation thrived on fear. Having collectively stood our ground, we saw how hollow her threats were when the community united. No official fines were levied, no real damage found. A father posted pictures on the forum showing how neatly we'd left the lawn, shutting down Karen's claim of destruction. Humiliated but still stubborn, Karen attempted new tactics to reclaim her sense of control. Quiet Hours Petition. She circulated a petition demanding quiet hours from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekends, essentially barring children from playing during the prime daytime. She claimed older residents needed rest. Parents countered with a second petition affirming children's right to use the lawn. Karen's petition gained maybe 4 signatures. Ours got over 30. The board dismissed her proposal in a single meeting. Caution tape stunt. One Saturday, Karen roped off a section of the lawn, posting a sign about reseeding for lawn repair due to irresponsible usage. When the board confirmed no official reseeding was planned, we removed the tape. Karen threatened to call the police again, but nobody budged. If the cops showed up, we'd explain the lawn was not actually undergoing repairs. She backed down. Ongoing minor complaints. Karen took pictures of chalk drawings, dog walkers, even strollers left briefly near a bench. She emailed them to the board under subject lines like community violations. The board, exasperated, told her these minor issues didn't warrant action. Her influence waned with every failed complaint. Over time, more residents turned against her high-handed approach. Some older neighbors, once sympathetic, realized she was just overreacting. Harriet even wrote a letter to the board praising how the children's presence brightened Mapleway Court, calling Karen's hostility unnecessary drama. Spurred by Karen's overreach, neighbors started bonding. We organized small gatherings on the lawn more regularly, afternoon chats, potluck snacks, always mindful to pick times that wouldn't disturb late sleepers or dinner hours, but never ceding the space to her. Freed from intimidation, families and even childless couples began using the lawn for barbecues, yoga sessions, or just reading on a blanket. When HOA elections rolled around, a wave of new candidates stepped up, campaigning on promises to preserve the communal lawn for all. Turnout soared. 3 new board members won by landslide margins. Karen, meanwhile, retained her seat on a minor committee, but her power to push radical measures was effectively neutralized. The board reaffirmed policies that kids could use the lawn during normal daytime hours, as long as they were supervised and respectful. With Karen sidelined, Mapleway Court blossomed. Over the next few months, a sense of unity replaced the old hush of caution. Parents spoke freely, Harriet's bench became a social hub, and the lawn truly felt communal. We heard fewer stories of Karen confronting people. Occasionally she'd email the new board about trivial matters, but they rarely escalated. For me personally, that birthday party stands out as the turning point. A day we collectively realized we didn't have to tiptoe around a single neighbor's demands. Karen's attempt to quash children's fun collapsed when we calmly exercised our right to gather. Even the police, once called, saw there was no real issue. The memory of them rolling up to find bouncing balloons and toddlers in face paint still makes me chuckle. I imagine their confusion, thinking they'd find some out-of-control party, only to see half-pint kids munching on cupcakes. Mateo, now older, still talks about the time the police came to my party but said everything was fine. He thinks it's hilarious that the biggest fuss was over a bubble machine and giggling preschoolers. In his mind, that day was magical, a swirl of pastel balloons, frosted cake, and new friendships. No concept that behind the scenes, we'd waged a quiet war against an HOA tyrant. Even neighbors who rarely mingled before found themselves bonding over that day's events. They discovered how a single act of standing up for something as innocent as a child's birthday party could reshape the entire neighborhood dynamic. Karen's ban turned out to be the catalyst for a stronger, friendlier Mapleway Court. Nowadays, if you visited Mapleway Court, you'd likely see children of various ages playing tag on the lawn, squealing in delight. Parents chatting in small clusters, sipping lemonade, keeping an eye on their kids. Harriet in her usual spot on the bench, crocheting or reading, occasionally smiling at the lively atmosphere. A sense of ease in the air, free from fear of that dreaded clipboard. Karen remains in her unit, though her presence is muted. Sometimes her curtains twitch if kids get particularly loud. Once in a blue moon, she'll emerge to scold a dog owner for letting their puppy wander off-leash. But overall, she no longer holds the neighborhood hostage to her whims. The board established clearer guidelines for actual noise issues, ensuring real complaints get handled fairly. Meanwhile, petty gripes about normal daytime play are dismissed. We still talk about hosting the next big birthday event on the lawn. Each time I mention it, my neighbors grin, referencing how Karen won't stand a chance. The entire fiasco taught us the power of unity, that a single, overbearing neighbor can't control a community if the rest stand together, especially when it comes to letting children be children. In the end, Karen's attempt to banish kids from the communal lawn backfired spectacularly. She tried forging an official ban, brandishing camera evidence, calling the police. None of it stopped us from celebrating a simple birthday party out in the open. The images from that day remain vivid. Children laughing under the sun, parents beaming with relief, Harriet handing out cookies. And yes, Karen lurking by her window, watching her plan to muzzle children's laughter fail in real time. Sometimes adversity reveals a community's true spirit. By targeting kids, Karen inadvertently awakened a shared resolve. We realized how vital that lawn was for families, how essential a bit of noise is to bring joy and connection. And on that sunny Saturday, as 10 toddlers played right beside her house, Karen discovered she couldn't stand against a wave of colorful balloons and unstoppable giggles. To anyone facing a similar HOA Karen, let our story encourage you. Host that birthday party, blow those bubbles, let your children's laughter ring out. You might face scowls or idle threats, but remember, laws and HOA rules rarely forbid normal daytime fun. Even if the police come, they'll see the innocence for what it is. Once your neighbors unite, petty tyrants lose their grip. And so Mapleway Court thrives, its communal lawn echoing with the very sounds Karen once tried to silence. That birthday bash remains a local legend, retold at cookouts and Halloween gatherings, reminding everyone that no matter how loud a complaint, the joyous laughter of children will prevail if the community bands together. Karen, overshadowed by unity, learned a harsh lesson. A single voice can't hush an entire block of determined parents. And the kids? They just keep on playing, free and victorious.